I was 8 years old when my mom disappeared. Not literally, not at first, but in every way that mattered. One day she was there, packing my lunch and braiding my hair, and the next, she was this hollow shell moving through our house like a ghost. She'd stare at walls for hours. She'd forget to pick me up from school. Some nights I'd find her sitting in the dark kitchen at 3 in the morning, just sitting there, doing nothing. My dad sat me down one evening and used a word I'd never heard before: depression. He said Mom was sick, but not the kind of sick where you take medicine and get better in a week. The kind of sick that lives in your brain and makes everything feel impossible. I remember asking if it was my fault, if I'd done something wrong. The way his face crumpled when I asked that, I've never forgotten it. He pulled me close and said, "Baby girl, sometimes people's brains get sick just like bodies do, and it has nothing to do with you. But I need you to be strong for me, okay? We're going to help Mom get better together." What my dad didn't tell me that night was that he was terrified. I found out years later that Mom had tried to hurt herself the week before, that he'd found her in time and rushed her to the hospital, that the doctor said it was serious and she needed intensive treatment. He protected me from all of that. Instead, he became 2 parents overnight. My dad was a construction worker. He'd leave for job sites at 5 in the morning and come home covered in dust and sweat at 6 in the evening. But after Mom got sick, everything changed. He'd wake me up at 4:30, help me get dressed, make breakfast, pack both our lunches. He'd drop me at my grandmother's house before dawn, work all day, then pick me up, and somehow have energy to help with homework, make dinner, give Mom her medications, put me to bed, and then stay up with Mom through her bad nights when the darkness felt too heavy for her to carry alone. I didn't understand. Then what that cost him. I didn't know that he'd taken a pay cut by switching to a job closer to home, so he could be there if Mom needed him. I didn't know he'd stopped sleeping more than 3 or 4 hours a night. I didn't know his friends stopped calling because he never had time to see them anymore. All I knew was that Dad was always there, solid as a mountain, never complaining, never making me feel like my childhood was a burden he had to carry. But here's the thing about being a kid with a depressed parent. You grow up fast whether anyone wants you to or not. By the time I was 10, I knew how to make simple meals. I knew which pills Mom needed to take at what times. I knew the warning signs of when she was having a bad day versus when she was having a dangerous day. And I knew how to be quiet, how to be easy, how to not add to the weight my dad was already carrying. There was this one night, I must have been 11, when everything came crashing down. Mom had a really bad episode. She was screaming that she wanted to die, that we'd all be better off without her, that she couldn't do this anymore. I was hiding in my room, covering my ears, crying silently into my pillow because I didn't want Dad to hear and worry about me too. Eventually it got quiet, and I heard my dad's heavy footsteps coming down the hall. He opened my door and found me there, curled up and shaking. He sat on the edge of my bed and just held me while I cried. And then he cried too. It was the first time I'd ever seen my father cry. Big, shoulder-shaking sobs. He said, "I'm sorry, sweetheart. I'm so sorry you have to go through this. I'm trying my best, but I don't know if it's enough. I don't know how to fix this." And in that moment, I realized my dad wasn't a superhero. He was just a man doing everything he possibly could and still feeling like he was failing. I did something that night that I think changed both of us. I hugged him back and said, "Dad, you're enough. You're more than enough. We're going to be okay." I was 11 years old and I was comforting my father, and it should have felt wrong, but it didn't. It felt like we were a team, like we were in this together. Mom was in and out of treatment facilities for the next 3 years. Some stays were 2 weeks, some were 2 months. Every time she came home, there'd be this period where things seemed better, where we'd have family dinners and she'd smile real smiles, and I'd let myself hope. And then, inevitably, she'd start slipping again. The smile would become forced. The silence would return. And Dad and I would brace ourselves for the next wave. Middle school was hell. Not because of typical middle school drama, but because I was carrying this secret that felt too heavy to share. How do you explain to your friends why they can't come over? How do you tell them that your mom might be having a good day? or she might be catatonic in bed. I stopped inviting people over. I made excuses. Eventually, I just stopped trying to maintain friendships. It was easier to be alone than to constantly lie about my home life. My dad noticed. Of course he noticed. One Saturday morning, he took me to this diner we used to go to when I was little. We ordered pancakes, and he said, "Talk to me. What's going on in that head of yours?" And I just broke. I told him everything. How lonely I was, how scared I was that Mom would never get better, how sometimes I resented her for being sick, and then felt guilty for resenting her. How I felt like I was drowning and couldn't tell anyone because everyone already had enough to worry about. My dad listened to all of it without interrupting. When I finished, he reached across the table and took my hand. He said, "You know what I've learned through all this? It's okay to not be okay. It's okay to be angry and sad and scared. Those feelings don't make you a bad daughter. They make you human. And you don't have to carry this alone. That's what I'm here for. We're a team, remember?" Then he did something I'll never forget. He signed me up for therapy. He couldn't really afford it, but he made it work. He said, "You need someone to talk to who isn't living in the middle of this storm with you. Someone who can help you process everything you're feeling." That therapy saved my life. It gave me tools to cope, strategies to manage my anxiety, and most importantly, it gave me permission to take care of myself without feeling guilty about it. High school brought new challenges. Mom had been stable for almost a year, which was the longest good stretch we'd had. I was starting to relax, starting to believe maybe things were really getting better. I joined the drama club, made some friends, even started dating this sweet guy named Marcus. Life felt almost normal. And then Mom stopped taking her medication. She said she felt good, that she didn't need the pills anymore, that they made her feel foggy, and she wanted to feel like herself. Again. Dad and I tried to reason with her, but she was adamant. Within 3 weeks, she was spiraling. Within 6 weeks, she was back in the hospital. I was 16, and I was so angry. Angry at her for stopping the meds. Angry at Dad for not somehow preventing it. Angry at myself for believing things could actually be normal for us. I said terrible things to my dad during that time. I blamed him. I said if he really loved Mom, he would have made her keep taking the medication. I said I was tired of this life, tired of always being the responsible one, tired of having a mother who was there but not really there. My dad took it all without fighting back. He just absorbed my anger like he'd been absorbing everything else for years. Looking back now, I don't know how he did it. I don't know how he stayed patient and loving when everyone around him was falling apart. The turning point came on my 17th birthday. Mom was home from the hospital, medicated and stable again. Dad had planned this small party, just the three of us, trying to make it special. Mom had been working with her therapist on something, and after we ate cake, she handed me an envelope. Inside was a letter, 5 pages long, handwritten. In it, she apologized. She apologized for all the missed school plays and parent-teacher conferences. She apologized for the fear and uncertainty she'd put me through. She apologized for not being the mother she wanted to be. But then she said something that changed everything. Depression tells me I'm a burden, that you'd all be better off without me. But your father, your wonderful, steadfast father, he's shown me every single day that love doesn't give up. He's shown me that staying is brave, that fighting is worth it, that even on the days when I can't see it, there's light ahead. And you, my beautiful girl, you've shown me the same thing just by being here, by not giving up on me even when I'd given up on myself. She wrote about watching me grow up, about all the little moments she was present for even when her depression made it hard to show it. She wrote about the pride she felt seeing me become strong and compassionate despite everything. And she wrote about her commitment to keep fighting, to keep trying, because we were worth it. I cried reading that letter. We all cried. And for the first time in years, it felt like we were actually talking about the elephant that had been living in our house for nearly a decade. We talked about the hard stuff. We talked about our fears and our hopes. We made a plan together for what to do when Mom felt herself slipping, for how to communicate better, for how to support each other without losing ourselves in the process. My dad's role in all of this, I'm only now beginning to fully understand as an adult. He was the glue holding our family together. He was the one who never got to fall apart because someone had to keep the ship steady. He sacrificed his career ambitions, his social life, his own mental health at times, to make sure Mom got the care she needed and I got some semblance of a childhood. He did it without martyrdom, without making us feel guilty, without keeping score. When I went away to college, I called him every week, sometimes multiple times a week. He'd tell me about his days, about Mom's progress, about the small victories and the setbacks. And I started to hear something new in his voice. Hope. Real, genuine hope that maybe we'd turned a corner. Mom had been consistently stable for over a year. She'd found the right combination of medication and therapy. She'd started volunteering at a mental health nonprofit, using her experience to help others. She was becoming herself again, or maybe becoming who she was always meant to be after fighting so hard to get there. During my sophomore year, I came home for Thanksgiving. I walked into the house and heard laughter coming from the kitchen. Real laughter. Mom and Dad were cooking together, dancing to old music, teasing each other like newlyweds. Mom looked alive in a way I'd never seen. Her eyes were bright. Her smile reached all the way up to her eyes. And my dad, he looked lighter, like someone had lifted a weight off his shoulders that he'd been carrying for so long he'd forgotten what it felt like to stand up straight. That night, after Mom went to bed, I stayed up talking with my dad. I asked him the question that had been burning in my mind for years. Why did you stay? It would have been so much easier to leave. Nobody would have blamed you. He looked at me like I'd asked why the sky was blue. He said, because I love her. Not in spite of her illness, but all of her, including the parts that are broken and struggling. And because you needed to see what real love looks like. Love isn't just the easy moments and the good days. Love is showing up when it's hard. Love is choosing someone over and over again, even when they can't choose themselves. I needed you to know that's what commitment means. He continued. And honestly, there were days I wanted to quit. Days I felt so tired and overwhelmed I didn't think I could go on. But then I'd look at you, and I'd see this strong, compassionate person emerging from all this chaos, and I'd think, we're doing something right. We're showing her that people don't give up on each other, that families fight together, that love is stronger than illness. I'm 26 now. Mom has been stable for 7 years. She still has bad days. Occasionally, but she has tools to manage them, and she has us. Dad retired from construction last year and started doing carpentry as a hobby, building beautiful furniture that Mom sells online. They're happy, really genuinely happy in a way that feels earned through battle. I work as a therapist now, specializing in families dealing with mental illness. Everything I learned growing up in that house, every hard lesson about resilience and compassion and the complexity of love, I use to help others. My parents' story isn't a fairy tale. It's messy and hard, and there were times when we almost didn't make it. But it's also a testament to what's possible when people refuse to give up on each other. The bond between my dad and me is unbreakable. It was forged in the hardest times, when we had to be each other's strength. He taught me that being strong doesn't mean never falling apart. It means getting back up after you do. He taught me that love is a verb, something you do every single day through actions big and small. He taught me that staying is sometimes the bravest thing you can do. Last month, I got married. Dad walked me down the aisle, and when he handed me off to my husband, he whispered, "You're going to be amazing at this. You learned from the best team there ever was." And he was right. Mom and Dad, through all their struggles, showed me what partnership really means. Not perfection, but persistence. Not ease, but effort. Not giving up when things get hard, but holding on tighter and fighting through together. My mom gave a speech at the reception. She talked about her journey, about the darkness she'd fought through, and about the 2 people who held her hand the entire way. She said, "My daughter grew up too fast because I was sick. My husband carried burdens no one should have to carry alone. And yet, standing here today, I see that somehow, we didn't just survive. We became stronger. We became proof that love really does conquer all, even the things that live in our own minds trying to convince us we're not worth fighting for. There wasn't a dry eye in the room, because everyone there knew our story. We'd stopped hiding it years ago. It became our testimony, our proof that families can weather any storm if they face it together. The bonds that conquer all aren't pretty. They're forged in crisis, tempered by time, and strengthened through choice. The bond between parent and child is supposed to be the parent taking care of the child. But sometimes it's more complicated than that. Sometimes it's a partnership where everyone carries what they can and nobody keeps score. Sometimes the child has to be strong so the parent can fall apart. Sometimes the roles blur and shift, and that's okay. My dad could have left. He could have decided this was too hard, too much, too unfair. Instead, he showed me what unconditional love looks like in its truest, rawest form. Not the romantic movie version, but the real version that shows up at 4 a.m. and makes breakfast for a kid who needs normalcy, that sits with a suffering spouse through the worst nights, that keeps going when everything in you wants to quit. That's the bond that conquers all. Not the bond that never breaks, but the bond that breaks and heals, breaks and heals, over and over, until it becomes stronger than steel. The bond built on choice, on commitment, on love that says, I'm here, and I'm staying, no matter what. That's what my dad gave me. That's what our family became. And that's what I'll carry forward for the rest of my life.